I ran through the hospital corridor. My world was collapsing. My husband was in critical condition. Just as my hand touched the door, a young doctor grabbed my arm and whispered, "Hide and trust me." I slipped behind the door, holding my breath, and 5 minutes later, I saw it. Before we get into the story, don't forget to say hi in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. And make sure to hit the subscribe button on Stories with Meaning channel so you won't miss our next intriguing story. The phone on the bedside table vibrated violently, then rang sharply, shattering the silence of the night. I was sitting on the living room sofa, trying to read a book, but my mind kept drifting. It was already 11 p.m., and Ethan, my husband, still hadn't come home. Earlier, he had said there was a sudden meeting with an important client. I grabbed my phone, hoping it was him calling to say, "I'm on my way, love." But the name on the screen was an unknown number. A bad feeling crept up my spine. I answered hesitantly. "Hello? Is this Mrs. Clara Bennett, wife of Mr. Ethan Bennett?" The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and cold. "Yes, this is she," I replied. My heart began to race. "This is Central City Medical Center. We need you to come immediately. Your husband has been involved in a traffic accident. His condition is critical." The world stopped spinning. The book slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a dull thud, but in my ears it sounded like an explosion. "Critical?" I whispered. "What do you mean, critical?" "He is currently in the intensive care unit. We strongly advise you to come as soon as possible." The line went dead. I stood frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear. Critical? Accident? The words spun endlessly in my mind, refusing to form a complete meaning. This had to be a nightmare. I bit my lower lip hard, tasting blood. It was real. I jumped up from the sofa, panic taking over. Keys, wallet, shawl. I ran into the bedroom, grabbed a shawl from the hanger, my hands shaking as I put it on. The pin felt dull. I pricked my finger, but I didn't care. I snatched my handbag and car keys and rushed out of the apartment, still wearing my house dress. The night air was cold, cutting into my skin. I ran to the basement parking garage. My hands shook violently as I tried to insert the key into the car door. Missed. Tried again. Missed again. I burst into tears. "Calm down, Clara. Calm down," I whispered to myself. I took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and finally managed to open the door. I drove like a mad woman. The streets, usually crowded, were nearly empty. City lights streaked past the windows, blurred by my tears. I kept praying, "God, please save Ethan. Don't take him. I'm not ready. We had so many plans. We were just getting started." The radio was off. The only sounds were the engine and my sobs. I remembered our conversation that morning. Ethan smiled while tying his tie. He said Marcus, his best friend and business partner, had just secured a major project. He was excited. He kissed my forehead before leaving. "Tonight, we celebrate." How could a celebration turn into tragedy so fast? Central City Medical Center loomed before me, a massive white building that felt threatening instead of comforting. I parked recklessly near the emergency entrance, ignoring the shouts of a security guard, and ran inside. The lobby was brightly lit. The smell of antiseptic and disinfectant stung my nose, making me nauseous. "ICU! Where is the ICU?" I shouted at the nurse at the reception desk. She looked at me with pity. "5th floor, ma'am. Elevator to your right, but visiting hours." I didn't hear the rest. I was already running toward the elevator. My heart felt like it was about to explode. Every second stretched into an eternity. The elevator doors opened on the 5th floor. The corridor was silent, too silent. Only the low hum of machines I didn't recognize filled the air. The walls were painted a pale green, a color meant to be calming. Tonight, it only made me more afraid. I saw it, a large glass door with ICU written above it. The waiting area was empty. My legs felt heavy as lead as I walked closer. Through the glass, I saw rows of beds, blinking monitors, nurses moving soundlessly. On one of the room doors, I saw the name Ethan Bennett. My world shattered. It was real. My husband was inside, fighting for his life. Tears flooded my face again. I had to go in. I had to see him. I had to hold his hand and tell him I was here. I stepped forward, my hand reaching for the heavy glass door. Suddenly, a strong hand grabbed my arm. I gasped and spun around. A young man in a white doctor's coat stood before me. I didn't recognize him. He looked young, probably a resident. His eyes were sharp, filled with something I couldn't read. Fear, urgency. "Mrs. Bennett?" he asked quietly but firmly. I nodded stiffly, too shocked to speak. He glanced quickly down the corridor behind us, making sure no one was around, then looked back at me. His grip tightened, as if afraid I'd run. "Don't go in," he whispered. "What?" I frowned, confusion momentarily overpowering my panic. "My husband is inside. I have to see him." I tried to pull my arm away, but his grip was strong. "No," he hissed sharply, his eyes now wild with genuine fear. "No, no matter what happens, don't let anyone know you're here tonight." "Who are you? Let me go." "My name is Dr. Adrian Cole. I'm one of the residents here." He spoke quickly, still whispering. "There's no time to explain. Do you see that door across the hall? The utility room. Hide there, now." I stared at the dull brown wooden door he pointed to, a small storage room for cleaning supplies. "You're insane. I'm not hiding. My husband." "If you want your husband to survive," he cut in sharply, "you'll do exactly what I say." The certainty in his voice froze me. "They're coming," he added urgently. "Go in. Don't make a sound. No matter what you see or hear, don't come out." "They? Who?" He didn't answer. He gently but firmly pushed me toward the utility room. "Trust me." I don't know what possessed me. Maybe the desperation in his eyes, maybe his absolute conviction that something was terribly wrong in this hospital. I didn't resist anymore. My heart pounded painfully in my chest. Dr. Cole opened the utility room door slightly. The musty smell of chemicals and damp air hit my face. It was pitch dark inside. "Go," he ordered. I stepped backwards into the darkness. It felt like stepping into a small grave. He left the door barely ajar, leaving a thin gap, just enough for me to press my eye against it and peek into the corridor. "Don't move," he whispered one last time. Then he let go. The door closed with a soft click, leaving me alone in complete darkness, standing silently behind it. I held my breath. My heart pounded so loudly in my ears it felt deafening. I could feel dust in the air, making my nose itch. I fought desperately against the urge to cough. I pressed my eye to the narrow crack in the door. I could only see a small slice of the sterile corridor outside, a strip of gleaming linoleum floor and pale green walls. Time seemed to stop. 1 minute passed. Nothing happened. Maybe that doctor really was crazy. I should go out. I should be by Ethan's side. 2 minutes. I began to tremble, not just from fear, but from the cold. There was no heating in this room. I wrapped my arms around myself. My shawl felt damp against my skin from cold sweat. 3 minutes. I heard the distant ding of an elevator. Footsteps. No. Maybe it was just my imagination. 4 minutes. Doubt began to gnaw at me. This was ridiculous. I was Clara Bennett, a terrified wife hiding in a janitor's closet while my husband lay critically ill just across the hall, on the orders of a stranger whose name I barely knew. 5 minutes. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard it. Footsteps. Not hurried footsteps like nurses rushing to an emergency. These were calm, steady, confident steps. 2 sets of them. They came from the direction of the elevator. I stopped breathing. My eye was locked on the narrow gap in the door. 2 men stepped into my limited field of vision. They stopped directly in front of Ethan's ICU room. My heart leapt into my throat. I recognized them. One was an older, broad-built doctor I knew well, Dr. Raymond Brooks, the head of the ICU, the man who was supposed to be saving Ethan. Standing beside him was Marcus Hale, Ethan's best friend, his business partner, the man I had always thought of as my own brother. The breath I almost released caught painfully in my chest. Of course Marcus was here. Of course he should be. But something was wrong. Marcus didn't look panicked. He didn't look sad. His usually warm, smiling face was rigid, cold. His eyes scanned the empty corridor, sweeping left and right. For a split second, I thought his gaze would meet the crack where I was hiding. I pulled my head back slightly, terrified he could sense my presence. Dr. Brooks swiped his access card. The ICU door opened with a soft hiss. They both went inside. The door closed. The corridor fell silent again. I stood frozen in the darkness, shaking violently. Why was Marcus here with the head of the ICU? Why did Dr. Cole tell me to hide from them? What was happening? I had to know. I pushed the door open a little wider, painfully slowly, careful not to make a sound. The gap was now wide enough to see Ethan's room. The door was glass, but frosted in the center. I could only make out silhouettes. The silhouettes of Dr. Brooks and Marcus standing beside the bed. Then I saw something that made my blood turn to ice, something that locked my entire body in pure horror. I saw Dr. Brooks lift a syringe. The liquid inside was not clear, it was cloudy. He didn't inject it into Ethan's arm. He injected it directly into the IV bag hanging above the bed. Marcus stood there, watching, not stopping him. Then Marcus pulled something from the inside pocket of his suit jacket, a small case, more like a thick wallet or a large envelope. He handed it to Dr. Brooks. Dr. Brooks took it, gave a brief nod, and slipped it into his lab coat pocket. I clamped both hands over my mouth to stop the scream that threatened to rip out of my chest. I was in shock. My knees buckled. My husband wasn't being saved. He was being murdered. And the one paying for it was his own best friend. I leaned against the cold wall of the utility room. My legs could no longer support me. I slid down onto the floor, collapsing between dirty buckets and mops. What had I just seen? No, that wasn't possible. Marcus, Ethan's best friend, the man who stood beside him at our wedding, the man who ate dinner at our home, laughed with us, celebrated our successes. No, there had to be another explanation. Maybe it was medicine. Maybe it was something Ethan really needed. Maybe that case was payment for special treatment. Yes, that had to be it. My mind desperately searched for a logical explanation, refusing to accept the nightmare my eyes had witnessed. But Dr. Cole's whisper echoed in my head. Hide and trust me. If it was normal medical procedure, why did I have to hide? If it was life-saving medicine, why was Dr. Cole so terrified? And why was Marcus, the patient's friend, paying the doctor directly? And why did Marcus look so cold, so calculating? I heard the ICU door open again. The soft hiss now sounded like a demon's howl. I peeked out once more. Dr. Brooks and Marcus stepped into the corridor. Make sure the dosage works exactly as planned, Marcus said calmly. His voice was low, but in the silent hellway, it carried clearly. I don't want any mistakes. Don't worry, Mr. Hale, Dr. Brooks replied, flat and professional. Within 12 hours, his condition will deteriorate sharply. Heart failure due to traumatic complications. Clean. No one will suspect a thing. Good. Remember our agreement, Marcus said. Once this is over, the remaining payment will be transferred immediately. I understand. They walked casually toward the elevator. Marcus even straightened his tie. They didn't look like two men who had just visited a dying friend. They looked like business partners who had just finalized a deal, a transaction. My husband was a transaction. That's when my denial shattered. The shock transformed into something else, something cold, sharp, and lethal. Rage. A rage so thick it made me nauseous. My blood no longer froze. It boiled. The elevator doors closed with a ding. They were gone. The corridor was empty again. A few seconds later, the utility room door opened. Light from the hallway stabbed my eyes, now accustomed to the darkness. Dr. Adrian Cole stood there, his face deathly pale. He saw me on the floor, trembling, but no longer from fear. You heard?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer. I just stared at him with dry eyes. My tears were gone. He reached out and helped me stand. My legs were still weak. He led me out of the foul-smelling room and into a shadowed corner of the corridor, far from the nurse's station. "Clara," he said gently, "they're going to kill my husband." My own voice sounded unfamiliar, raw, hoarse, filled with hatred. Marcus? His own best friend? Dr. Cole nodded, guilt filling his eyes. I suspected it the moment Ethan was admitted. "Why?" I demanded. "Why did you suspect something?" Dr. Cole took a long breath. He suddenly looked far older than his young face suggested. "This isn't the first time," he said quietly. "I've only worked here 6 months, but I've seen the pattern. Dr. Brooks, he's the head of the ICU, highly respected, but something about him is wrong." He paused, choosing his words carefully. 2 months ago, there was an elderly woman, extremely wealthy. She was admitted for a fractured hip. The surgery was successful. "And it happened again last month," Dr. Adrian Cole continued. "A businessman, a minor stroke, he should have recovered. But he was transferred to the ICU because his blood pressure was unstable. Dr. Raymond Brooks took over the case. 3 days later, he died from a massive stroke. Clean." My eyes widened. "You think Dr. Brooks?" "I think Dr. Brooks provides a service," Dr. Cole said quietly. "A service that makes death look natural, for inpatient heirs, for ruthless business partners." "But Ethan," I whispered. "Why Ethan?" "That's what convinced me," Dr. Cole said. "I reviewed your husband's initial medical report when he arrived at the emergency department. His injuries were serious, but not life-threatening. A few broken ribs, a mild concussion, minor internal bleeding that was already controlled. He should have stabilized. He should have started waking up." He looked straight into my eyes. "But Dr. Brooks immediately transferred him to the ICU. He took full control of the case. He claimed Ethan's condition was unstable. He restricted visiting hours. He insisted on complete isolation. Since then, your husband's condition hasn't improved." "That doesn't make medical sense." "The accident," I whispered. A horrifying thought began to take shape. "I believe the accident was staged," Dr. Cole said, confirming my fear. "It was just a way to bring Ethan here, into Dr. Brooks' territory. Here, he controls everything, the medications, the monitor data. Here, he can kill your husband slowly and call it medical complications." "The cloudy liquid," I murmured. heart failure within 12 hours. Yes, Dr. Cole said bitterly. Whatever he injected into the IV bag, that was poison. A slow-acting poison designed to mimic heart failure. When your husband dies tomorrow morning, no one will question it. Just a grieving wife and a loyal best friend arranging the funeral. I clenched my fists until my fingernails dug into my palms. The physical pain was nothing compared to the agony in my chest. Ethan, my kind-hearted husband, my husband who trusted people too easily. He was lying there, helpless, while the man he called a brother was planning his death. "We can't let this happen," I said. Dr. Cole looked at me. "I'm glad you said that, but what can we do? He's the head of the ICU. Marcus Hale is powerful and wealthy. Who would believe us? A hysterical wife and a junior resident?" "They made a mistake tonight," Dr. Cole said calmly. "They don't know you're here. They don't know I'm watching." He pointed toward Ethan's room. "That injection was probably just the first dose. They'll need to increase it or give the final one to finish the job. They said 12 hours. That means they'll be back. Most likely during shift change, when everything is chaotic." "So we wait?" I asked. "No," Dr. Cole said, his eyes hardened. "We don't wait. We fight." He studied me carefully. "I need your help, Clara. I can't do this alone. If I go in there, I'll be suspected immediately. But you're his wife. You have a reason to be there." "What do you want me to do?" I asked. The fear was still there, but my anger and determination were stronger. Dr. Cole pulled 2 items from his pocket, a brand new sterile syringe and a tiny digital recorder no larger than my thumb. "We don't have much time," he said. "We need evidence." I stared at the objects in his palm. A syringe, a recorder. They felt impossibly heavy. "What are these for?" I asked, my voice shaking. "This is our chance," Dr. Cole said. His face was serious now, no trace of fear left. He looked like a fighter. "We need 2 things. First, we need to know what they injected into your husband's IV bag. Second, we need proof that this was done intentionally." He handed me the tiny recorder. "This is a voice-activated recorder. I want you to sneak into your husband's room and hide it somewhere discreetly, under the bed frame, behind a monitor panel, anywhere it won't be noticed." Sneak into the room where my husband was being poisoned? My heart slammed against my ribs. "When?" I asked. "Now," he said. "We don't know when they'll return." "But the nurses," I whispered. "The nurses' station is right across from Ethan's room. They'll see anyone going in or out." "Leave that to me," Dr. Cole said. "I'll create a diversion, something big enough to pull everyone away." Then he handed me the sterile syringe. "This is more important and more dangerous." He locked eyes with me. "Clara, after you plant the recorder, you must take a sample from Ethan's IV bag, the same bag they just injected." He showed me how. "Look at the IV bag. There's a tube connected to it. Near the bag, there's a small rubber port, usually blue or red. You insert the needle into that port and draw out a small amount. Just 1 milliliter is enough." My hand started shaking again. "What if I do it wrong? What if I hurt him?" "You won't," Dr. Cole said firmly. "You're not injecting anything. You're only taking a sample from the bag. This is standard nursing procedure. But you must be fast, and you must not get caught." He gripped my shoulders. "Listen carefully, Clara. If Dr. Brooks or another nurse catches you doing this, they'll say you're hysterical. They'll say you tried to harm your husband. They can restrain you. They can sedate you. Do you understand the risk?" I swallowed hard. Cold fear crawled down my spine. Then I remembered Ethan's face, his smile that morning,
Marcus's cold voice. "I don't want any mistakes." I nodded. "I understand. I'll do it." "Good," Dr. Cole said with relief flashing across his face. "Now go back to the utility room, wait for my signal. You'll hear a code blue alarm. That means a patient is in cardiac arrest. When you hear it, everyone will run toward the sound. That's when you move." "Where will you be?" I asked. "I'll be leading the code blue team," he said with a thin smile. "I'll keep them busy as long as possible. You'll have a window, but don't waste it. Go in, plant the recorder, take the sample, get out. Return to the utility room. Don't go anywhere until I come get you." I nodded again. I slipped the syringe and recorder into the pocket of my house dress. They felt cold against my skin. "Be careful, Clara," he whispered. I stepped back into the dark utility room. This time, the darkness felt like an ally, a protective cloak. I stood behind the door, listening intently. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. I heard quiet chatter from the nurse's station, the rolling of carts, the constant beep, beep, beep of ECU monitors. Then, a piercing alarm, and a voice over the intercom. "Code Blue, room 509. Code Blue, room 509. Room 509 was at the far end of the corridor, the opposite direction from Ethan's room. The hallway erupted into chaos. Running footsteps, lots of them. "Get the defibrillator. Bring the crash cart." The sounds rushed away. I peeked out. The nurse's station was empty. The corridor in front of me was clear.
This was it. My heart felt like it was about to explode. I pushed the door open and stepped out. The corridor air was cold. I walked fast, forcing myself not to run, toward the glass door of Ethan's room. Ethan Bennett. I pushed the door. It opened silently, and I was inside. The antiseptic smell was stronger here, mixed with the steady sound of machines. Beep, beep, beep. The heart monitor was the only sound in the room. I saw him. My husband lay on the bed, pale and motionless. His face was calm, as if he were sleeping peacefully, but a bandage wrapped around his head, and a thin breathing tube rested beneath his nose. He looked so fragile. Tears threatened to fall. "No, not now, Clara. Focus." I forced myself to move. First, the recording device. I knelt on the cold floor, feeling beneath the bed. There was a metal frame. I found a flat surface, slightly hidden near the wall. I pressed the record button and secured it there. Done. I stood up. Now the hardest part. The IV bag. It hung from the pole beside the bed. The liquid was clear, but I knew Dr. Raymond Brooks had injected the cloudy poison into it. The fluid now dripped slowly, drop by drop, flowing through the tube and into my husband's veins. My hands shook violently as I pulled a syringe from my pocket and tore open the packaging. I spotted the blue rubber port on the IV line, exactly as Dr. Adrian Cole had instructed. "I'm sorry, my love." Holding my breath, I cleaned the port with the alcohol swab Dr. Cole had prepared. I positioned the syringe. I had to do this. I pushed the needle in. The rubber resisted for a second, then gave way. I pulled back the plunger. Clear liquid flowed into the syringe. 1 cc. I pulled the needle out. Success. I sealed it carefully. I was holding the proof in my hands, the poison. "I'm done. I have to go." But I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at my husband's face. Love flooded my chest, tangled with a burning rage. I reached out and touched his cold cheek. "I'm here, Ethan," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I know what they're doing to you. I won't let them get away with this.
Hold on, please. Hold on for me. I leaned down to kiss his forehead. And that was when I heard it. A faint groan, so soft it nearly vanished beneath the machines. I froze. My eyes locked onto his face. "Ethan," I whispered. His eyes were still tightly closed. He didn't move. But then I saw it. Something that made my heart stop. From the corner of his closed eye, a single tear slipped free. It traced slowly down his temple, soaking into the hair near the bandage. He was conscious, not in a coma. He was trapped inside his own body. He heard everything I said. He knew I was there. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. A false alarm. The machines malfunctioning again. Panic surged. They were coming back. I had to leave, now. I looked at Ethan one last time. The tears still glistened on his cheek. "I'll come back," I promised him silently. I ran to the door, cracked it open, and peeked outside. The corridor was still empty, but voices were getting closer. I slipped out, sprinted down the hall, and ducked back into the utility room. I shut the door just as the nurses turned the corner. I leaned against it, shaking violently. But this time, it wasn't just fear. In my hand, I was gripping the syringe filled with evidence. And in my heart, I carried the image of my husband's tear. He was awake. He was fighting. Now, so was I. I pressed my back against the utility room door. The syringe felt cold and heavy in my hand. Proof, I had it. But I was trapped. Outside, I heard the nurses returning to their station, complaining softly about the false alarm that had interrupted their rest. My heart was still pounding, adrenaline slowly fading. Reality crept in. I was hiding in a dark storage room that smelled of mold and floor cleaner, while my husband's killers walked freely through Central City Medical Center. And Ethan, God, Ethan! That tear changed everything. This wasn't just a calculated murder anymore. This was torture. My husband lay there, paralyzed, unable to move, unable to speak, but fully aware. He knew what was happening. He might have heard Marcus Hale and Dr. Raymond Brooks talking. He might be feeling the poison creeping through his body. And he heard my voice. He knew I was there. A darker, stronger wave of fury replaced my fear. I would not let them torture him. I would not let them win. I clenched the syringe so tightly the plastic wrapper creaked. I had to get out. I had to give this to Dr. Adrian Cole. I pressed my ear to the wooden door. Everything outside sounded normal. The hum of machines, occasional footsteps, quiet conversation. How could I leave without being seen? If a nurse saw me coming out of this room at this hour, they would grow suspicious. I waited. Time crawled. Every minute felt like an hour. I focused on my breathing, forcing my heart to slow. I thought of Ethan, of his tear. It became my fuel. 20 minutes passed. Then I heard footsteps I recognized, calm, measured. Dr. Adrian Cole. I peeked through the crack. He walked down the corridor, holding medical charts, stopped at the nurse's station and spoke in his composed voice. "I'll check on Mr. Ethan Bennett in room 507 for a moment. Make sure his vitals are stable after that alarm." "Yes, doctor," the nurse replied. Dr. Cole walked toward Ethan's room. He didn't look my way. He acted completely normal. He entered the room. I waited. My heart pounded again. What was he doing? Minutes later, he exited and gently closed the door. He returned to the nurse's station, placed the charts down, and said casually, "Everything looks stable." Then he did something brilliant. He picked up a cup from the desk and walked toward the water dispenser, right near the utility room. He accidentally spilled water on the floor directly in front of my door. "Oh, damn it," he said loudly enough for the nurses to hear. "Sorry, nurse, I'm clumsy." "It's fine, doctor," one of the nurses replied. "I'll call housekeeping." "No need," Dr. Cole said smoothly. "I think there's a mop in the utility room. I'll grab it." That was the signal. My heart leapt. Dr. Cole walked to my door, his body blocking the nurse's view. He knocked softly. "Housekeeping," he said in a deliberately casual tone. He opened the door just a few centimeters. I was ready. The moment it opened, I slipped the wrapped theramped into his hand. His reflexes were fast. He took it and slid it into his coat pocket in one seamless motion. "I'm done. I have to go." But I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at my husband's face. Love flooded my chest, tangled with a burning rage. I reached out and touched his cold cheek. "I'm here, Ethan," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I know what they're doing to you. I won't let them get away with this. Hold on, please. Hold on for me." I leaned down to kiss his forehead. And that was when I heard it. A faint groan, so soft it nearly vanished beneath the machines. I froze. My eyes locked onto his face. "Ethan," I whispered. His eyes were still tightly closed. He didn't move. But then I saw it. Something that made my heart stop. From the corner of his closed eye, a single tear slipped free. It traced slowly down his temple, soaking into the hair near the bandage. He was conscious, not in a coma. He was trapped inside his own body. He heard everything I said. He knew I was there.
He cleared his throat and spoke in a normal voice. "Ah, here's the mop." He pretended to grab something from inside, but in reality, he opened the door a little wider, just enough to speak to me. "Listen," he whispered again, fast and sharp. "This is the evidence. I need to test it immediately. I have a contact at a private lab. I have to leave the hospital right now." "What should I do?" I whispered back. "I can't stay here." "You have to go," he said quietly. "Leave without being seen. Go home, change your clothes, erase every sign of panic. Then you come back." Come back? I couldn't believe it. All I wanted was to run, far away from this cursed place. "Yes, you come back tomorrow morning around 8, Dr. Adrian Cole said. "Act like a wife who just arrived, panicked, desperate to know her husband's condition. Ask Dr. Raymond Brooks. Ask Marcus Hale if he's around. Watch their reactions. Don't show that you know anything." "The recorder is still there," he continued. "We need them to talk." "But what if they finish it tonight?" Fear surged back into my chest. "They won't," Dr. Cole said firmly. "They said 12 hours. They want it to look natural, gradual heart failure. They'll probably give the final dose tomorrow morning, when the shift change, when everyone's distracted." He paused. "I'll try to keep an eye on him from a distance, but I can't do much without drawing suspicion. If I get a chance, I'll try to switch the IV bag with plain saline, but that's extremely risky." "Now go," he said. "I'll distract the nurses. When I give the signal, leave." "What's the signal?" "Wait." He closed the door, grabbed the mop, and actually cleaned the spilled water. When he returned the mop, he deliberately didn't shut the utility door all the way. He walked back to the nurse's station. "All taken care of, nurse. Sorry for the trouble." "No problem, doctor." Then I heard it. Dr. Cole's phone rang loudly. "What? A multi-car collision in the emergency department? Oh, God. All right, I'm on my way." He ended the call. "There's a major emergency in the emergency department. They need all resident doctors. I have to run." He sprinted toward the elevator.
The nurses immediately panicked, dialing the ER for confirmation. That was the second distraction. I didn't wait. I pushed the door open and stepped out. The corridor was empty. The nurses were busy on the phone. I walked quickly, without running, toward the elevator at the opposite end of the hall. My heart was pounding in my throat. I pressed the elevator button. It felt like forever. The doors opened. I stepped inside and pressed the lobby button. The doors closed. I was alone in the metal box. I leaned against the wall, shaking violently. I made it out. I had delivered the syringe, the proof, to Dr. Adrian Cole, and I knew my husband was still fighting. The ride down felt endless. When the elevator doors opened in the lobby, I walked out. The lobby was still brightly lit, but quieter now. The security guard who had shouted at me earlier was off duty. I walked straight to the automatic doors. The cold pre-dawn air hit my face like a slap, waking me from a nightmare. But this wasn't a dream. I reached my car and slid into the driver's seat. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I stared at the towering hospital building ahead of me. That place was no longer a place of healing. It was a nest of criminals. As the adrenaline faded, crushing exhaustion and guilt took its place. I had left Ethan in there, alone, trapped, terrified. I slammed my fist against the steering wheel. "Hold on, my love," I whispered. "I'll be back." I started the engine. I had to go home. I had to prepare. This game of Mouse in Black had just begun. Tomorrow, I would return as the wife, the grieving wife who knew nothing. I don't remember how I made it home. The 30-minute drive from Central Medical Center passed in a blur. I parked in the basement garage and took the elevator up to our unit. When I opened the door, silence greeted me like a cold wall. Everything was exactly as I'd left it in my panic hours earlier. The book that had fallen was still on the floor. Ethan's half-finished cup of tea still sat on the coffee table. His work jacket hung by the door. Everything looked normal, but nothing was normal anymore. My world had been turned upside down. I walked into my bedroom and caught my reflection in the mirror. A woman with red eyes, a messy shawl, and wrinkled clothes. I looked like a victim, but I wasn't. The anger I'd felt in the hospital crystallized into something else. Cold, razor-sharp resolve. I would not let Marcus Hale walk free. I would not let Dr. Raymond Brooks destroy our lives. I stepped into the bathroom and turned on the cold shower. Ice-cold water poured over me, shocking my system, washing away the fog of panic. I scrubbed my skin until it burned, like I could erase the smell of the hospital, the smell of fear, the stench of betrayal. When I stepped out, I felt clearer, focused. I opened my wardrobe. I didn't choose comfort. I chose my best work clothes. A crisp blouse, tailored slacks, a new shawl freshly pressed. I did my makeup, just enough to hide the dark circles under my eyes. If I had to play the role of the wife, I would play it perfectly. But beneath that role, I would be a detective and an executioner. The sun began to rise. Pale light slipped through the curtains. 6 a.m. Dr. Cole said, "Come back at 8. I had 2 hours. I couldn't just sit and wait. Dr. Cole was handling the physical evidence, the poison itself. That explained how they were doing it. I needed to know why. Marcus Hale. The remaining payment will be transferred. That money was for Dr. Raymond Brooks. But what was Marcus's motive? Why would he want to kill his own best friend? Business. It had to be business. I remembered our conversations. Over the past few weeks, Ethan had been tense, working late on his laptop. Even when he came home, something felt off. When I asked what was wrong, he just smiled. "Just work stuff. Marcus landed a big project. We have to make sure everything runs smoothly." A big project or a big problem? I opened the desk drawer and took out the spare office key. Their office. Ethan and Marcus's company, Brightcore Industries. I wasn't going back to the hospital yet. I was going to the office. The drive to the business district felt different that morning. People hurried to start their day, buying coffee, reading the news, unaware that among them was a woman whose world had shattered and a murderer who might be eating breakfast as if nothing had happened. The office building was still quiet. It was early. Only one security guard sat in the lobby. "Good morning, Mrs. Bennett," he greeted me, surprised to see me so early. "Here to see Mr. Bennett?" "I know," I cut in gently, forcing my voice to sound tired and sad. "I know about the accident. I just need to pick up some personal documents for insurance." The lie came easily. The guard looked at me with sympathy. "Of course, ma'am. Please go ahead. I'm very sorry about what happened. I hope Mr. Bennett recovers soon." "Thank you," I said softly. He unlocked the glass door for me. I stepped into the quiet office. The air conditioning hummed softly. I walked past rows of empty desks towards the corner office, Ethan's. My heart raced. I stepped inside. Everything was exactly as Ethan had left it. On the desk sat a framed photo of us on our wedding day. I turned my face away, swallowing the tears. "Focus, Clara."
I sat down in his chair. It still felt warm, or maybe that was just my imagination. I turned on his computer. The login screen appeared, asking for a password. I took a deep breath. I tried our wedding date. Access denied. My birthday. Denied. His birthday. Denied. I closed my eyes. What would Ethan's password be? Something personal. Something only he and maybe I would know. Then I remembered the silly nickname he used to call me when we first started dating. Evening Light. I typed a single word. Clay. The computer unlocked. My breath caught. I was in. I immediately opened his email program. Hundreds of emails flooded the screen. Bills, reports, internal memos. I used the search bar. I typed Marcus Hale. Dozens of emails appeared. At first glance, they looked normal. Routine business correspondence, project timelines, meeting schedules. I kept digging. There had to be something. Then I saw it. A folder on the left side of the screen, not labeled with a project or a client. It was labeled personal_draft. My hands trembled as I clicked it. There was only one email inside. A draft, unsent, addressed to Frank Mitchell, their company's legal partner. Subject, internal audit notification and partnership termination. My heart nearly stopped. I opened the email. It was a long, formal letter. Paragraph by paragraph, Ethan explained that he had discovered serious irregularities in the company's most recent quarterly financial reports. He wrote that he had secretly hired an external auditor to review the company's books for the past 2 years, and the results. Marcus Hale had embezzled company funds, not small amounts, tens of millions of dollars, transferred gradually into offshore shell accounts. The big project Marcus had been bragging about? It was fictitious, a cover to launder stolen money. My breath caught in my throat. I kept reading. The worst part was in the final paragraph. Ethan wrote that he had confronted Marcus. When? I looked at the timestamp at the bottom of the draft. Last modified, yesterday morning. Yesterday morning. The day of the accident. That day, Ethan had given Marcus an ultimatum. Return every dollar within 24 hours, or Ethan would report everything to the police and the board of directors. The accident. The accident was Marcus's answer to that ultimatum. Marcus never intended to return the money. He planned to silence Ethan permanently.
Nausea rose in my stomach. I wanted to throw up, but I wasn't done yet. If Marcus killed Ethan, what did he gain? Just covering up his crime? I went back to the desktop and searched for another folder. Legal. Insurance. Then I found it. Business insurance policy. I opened it. There were several policies: property insurance, employee coverage, and one PDF that had been created just a month earlier. I opened it. Business Partnership Life Insurance Policy. The policy covered both partners, Ethan Bennett and Marcus Hale. Standard practice. But then I read the fine print. If one partner died, all of their shares would automatically be liquidated and paid to the surviving partner. Marcus wasn't just covering up his crime. If Ethan died, Marcus would get everything. He'd escape embezzlement charges, he'd become the sole owner of our company, and on top of that, a massive insurance payout. I printed the email draft. I printed the insurance policy. I folded the papers and slipped them into my bag. There it was. The motive. Dr. Adrian Cole had the how. Now I had the why. I glanced at the wall clock. 7:45 a.m. It was time. Time to go back to the hospital. Time to begin my performance. As I reached to shut down Ethan's computer, my phone vibrated inside my bag. I pulled it out. Dr. Adrian Cole. I answered immediately. "Hello, Clara." His voice was tense, urgent, completely different from the calm tone he had the night before. "I got the lab results." "And?" I asked, holding my breath. "It's bad, very bad. It's high-dose succinylcholine, a fast-acting neuromuscular paralytic, extremely hard to detect during autopsy because it breaks down quickly." That explained everything. Why Ethan couldn't move, why his brain was still fully conscious. "As I suspected," Dr. Cole continued quietly, "they're torturing him." Then his voice dropped even lower. "But there's another problem." "What problem?" "The recorder you planted in your husband's room," he said. "I just checked it remotely via Bluetooth. It should have captured the nurses' conversations this morning." "Yes?" "It's dead." My phone felt ice cold against my ear. "Dead?" I whispered. "What do you mean dead? The battery was full." "Someone found it, Clara," Dr. Cole said grimly. "Or they shut it down. The battery couldn't have drained that fast. We've lost our ears." A chill, colder than the shower earlier, ran down my spine. Dead. The documents in my bag felt meaningless. If they knew we were watching, the game was over. They'd accelerate their plan. They'd kill Ethan immediately and find 100 ways to cover it up. They'd label me hysterical and remove me from the hospital. "What do we do?" I whispered, panic creeping in. I glanced at the clock on Ethan's computer. 7:50 a.m. I was already late. "You still have to come," Dr. Cole said firmly, trying to steady me. "Especially now. If you don't show up, it confirms their suspicions. You must keep playing your role. The grieving wife, confused, just arrived. Don't mention the recorder, don't mention the audit, not yet. I'll provoke them from the inside." "But they'll kill him," I said. "I'm already at Central City Medical Center," he replied. "I'm monitoring from a distance. I've switched his primary IV bag with pure saline. It buys us time, but it won't stop them if they decide to inject the final dose directly into his bloodstream. And succinylcholine works fast. We're running out of time." He took a breath. "Listen, Clara, you bring the evidence you found. The motive is in your hands. My lab results explain how. We have almost everything. We just need one last thing. Catch them in the act." "How?" "Go in as planned," he said. "I'll be watching. If I see them make a move, I'll intervene, but you have to be ready. This will be dangerous." The call disconnected. I stood alone in Ethan's empty office. The recorder was gone. Dr. Cole could only watch from afar. I had to walk straight into the lion's den alone, armed with a few pieces of paper and my acting skills. I took a deep breath. I thought of Ethan's tears. I thought of the paralytic poison flowing through his body while his mind screamed. Anger drowned out fear. I would not let them win. I shut down Ethan's computer, making sure there was no trace of my visit. I walked out of the office, nodding sadly to the security guard, who once again looked at me with pity. Only if he knew. The drive back to the hospital was the longest of my life. This time, I parked in the public lot.
I walked in through the main lobby like any other visitor. The atmosphere was completely different from the night before. Now it was bright, busy. The smell of coffee and fresh bread from the cafeteria mixed with the faint scent of antiseptic. I took the elevator to the 5th floor. When the doors opened, the sight greeted me again. The ICU corridor. The nurses' station was now bustling. Several nurses moved back and forth carrying medical charts. I walked slowly. I let my shoulders slump. I let my eyes look swollen and exhausted. I didn't need to act much for this part. I was exhausted. I was broken. The nurse at the desk noticed me. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I help you?" I'm Clara," I said. "Clara Bennett. Ethan Bennett's wife. Room 507. I forced my voice to sound hoarse, cracked. I want to know his condition. Last night they said he was critical." The nurse looked at me with sympathy. "One moment, Mrs. Bennett. I'll call Dr. Raymond Brooks. He's the attending physician handling your husband's case." My stomach twisted. Dr. Raymond Brooks. Of course. I waited in the corridor. Every second felt like a needle piercing my skin. I stared at Ethan's room door. It was tightly shut. The frosted glass seemed to mock me. Was he still in there? Was he still alive? "Mrs. Bennett." I turned. Dr. Raymond Brooks stood there, wearing his spotless white coat. His face was calm, displaying a perfectly trained expression of sympathy. He looked like a competent, caring doctor. He also looked like a masterful liar. "Doctor," I said, my voice trembling, "how is my husband? How is he?" Dr. Brooks let out a long sigh and put on a sorrowful face. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm very sorry. I think you should sit down first." "No, just tell me. I'm strong." He looked at me, as if weighing my condition. Unfortunately, his condition worsened overnight. We did everything we could, but the trauma to his head appears to have caused serious complications. "What kind of complications?" I asked, gripping the strap of my bag tightly. "His heart," he said grimly. "He's showing signs of acute heart failure. His blood pressure keeps dropping. We've administered the best medications available, but..." He shook his head slowly. He was lying right in front of my face. A heart failure he had manufactured himself. I don't understand," I said, playing my role. "Last night, the ER said his injuries weren't life-threatening. How could it suddenly become heart failure? Trauma like this can be unpredictable, Mrs. Bennett. The body can react in unexpected ways." "Clara." The voice cut him off. I turned. Marcus Hale was walking quickly towards us. His face was a masterpiece. He looked exhausted, eyes red, hair disheveled as if he hadn't slept all night. He looked exactly like a best friend shattered by tragedy. "Clara, you're finally here," he said hoarsely. He pulled me into a hug. My body stiffened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stab his back with a pen. I wanted to throw up. The body of my husband's murderer was touching me. I let it happen. I forced myself to cry against his shoulder. Most of those tears were pure rage. "Marcus," Dr. Brooks said. I know. I've been here since last night." Liar. I knew he left after administering the first dose. I couldn't bring myself to leave Ethan.
he added, stroking my back. Another lie. He released me but kept his hands on my shoulders, looking at me with practiced sympathy. You have to stay strong, Clara, for Ethan. What really happened? I asked, looking straight into his eyes, before turning to Dr. Brooks. Dr. Brooks was about to speak, but I cut him off. I had to take the risk. I had to see their reaction. I looked at Marcus. Marcus, yesterday morning, before the accident, Ethan said he needed to talk to you. He said it was extremely important. Silence fell between us, thick enough that I could hear it. Dr. Brooks frowned, confused. He didn't know about this. But Marcus? Marcus froze. Just for a second. His sad smile locked in place. His tired eyes sharpened. His pupils widened. There it was. He recovered quickly, letting out a small laugh, dry, forced. An audit? Clara, you must have misheard. Ethan probably meant a project. We've been extremely busy lately. Then, lightly, dismissively, honestly, in a moment like this, you're thinking about work? He tried to downplay it, but I saw it. I saw the panic in his eyes. No, I said, firmer now. He said audit. He was very serious. Clara, Marcus cut in sharply. His voice was no longer gentle. Enough. Your husband is fighting for his life in there, and you want to talk about work? You're exhausted. You're in shock. He shot Dr. Brooks a quick glance. A silent signal. Dr. Brooks immediately understood. Mrs. Bennett, you're experiencing severe shock. It's normal for your thoughts to be disorganized. He stepped closer. Nurse, please call the desk. Bring Mrs. Bennett a glass of water and perhaps a mild sedative to help her relax. They were trying to silence me. They thought I was hysterical. They thought I didn't know anything. They were wrong. I don't need a sedative. I need answers, I shouted. Dr. Brooks and Marcus exchanged another look. This time, there was no sympathy in Marcus's eyes, only cold calculation. He knew I knew something. That dead recording device, maybe it wasn't a nurse who found it. Maybe Marcus had someone check it after I said the word audit. They were in danger, and they knew it. I had to get out of there. I had to find Dr. Adrian Cole. But before I could move, I saw Dr. Brooks turn his back to me and speak quietly to Marcus. My sharp hearing and this tense corridor, their whispers carried clearly. She knows, Dr. Brooks whispered urgently. So what? Marcus replied coldly. We can't take the risk. We have to finish this now. Give the final dose. Make it look like massive cardiac arrest. Blame the shock. My heart stopped. The final dose. They were going to do it now. No! The scream tore out of my throat before I could stop it. My voice echoed down the sterile hallway. The nurses at the station looked up in shock. A few family members at the far end of the corridor peeked out. Dr. Brooks and Marcus turned towards me, startled by my outburst. Clara, calm down, Marcus said, stepping towards me, trying to grab my arm again. His fake face snapped back in place. Don't touch me. I stepped back. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. You killed him, both of you. Dr. Brooks narrowed his eyes. Mrs. Bennett, you're being hysterical. You're causing a disturbance in the ICU. Nurse, call the security. Call them, I shouted. Call the police. Call everyone. Let them all know what you did. This was a gamble. I didn't know where Dr. Adrian Cole was. I didn't know if his plan was still working. But I knew one thing. I could not let Dr. Brooks enter that room. I had to buy time. What are you talking about, Clara? Marcus said coldly now, all pretense gone. He knew I wasn't hysterical. I was accusing him. The audit, I shouted, pointing at his face. You embezzled tens of millions of dollars from the company. Ethan found out. He gave you an ultimatum yesterday. And you arranged that accident. Marcus's face drained of color. He looked like a ghost. He never expected me to know that much.
And you, I turned to Dr. Raymond Brooks, you helped him. For money. You poisoned my husband. You called it a complication. Dr. Brooks staggered back as if I had slapped him. This is ridiculous. This is slander. Is it? I reached into my bag. I didn't pull out an email. I pulled out my phone. I have proof, doctor, I said calmly. The poison you used, succinylcholine, a paralytic agent that's extremely hard to detect, right? I was bluffing. Dr. Adrian Cole had the real evidence, not me. But the bluff worked. Dr. Brooks's eyes widened in terror. Succinylcholine was too specific, a word no hysterical patient's wife should ever know. That was the nail in his coffin. He knew he'd been exposed. You bitch, he hissed. His professional mask vanished. What remained was the face of a panicked, cornered, dangerous man. Marcus, Dr. Brooks said tensely, she knows too much. We have to do it now. Do it, Marcus snapped, staring at me with pure hatred. He didn't care about witnesses anymore. He just wanted this over. What happened next unfolded in seconds. In pure panic, Dr. Brooks stopped thinking rationally. He didn't run toward Ethan's room. He saw the greater threat standing right in front of him. Me, the one holding the evidence, the one screaming in the corridor. He reached into the pocket of his white coat, not for a stethoscope, for a syringe. The same syringe filled with the cloudy liquid I had seen the night before. Maybe it was prepared for Ethan's final dose, but now he had a new target. He was insane. She's attacking me, Dr. Brooks shouted, a desperate, ridiculous lie. He lunged at me. I screamed and stumbled backward, slamming into the corridor wall. There was nowhere to run. The nurses at the station were too shocked to move. Marcus just stood there watching. His face was cruel. This was the solution to all his problems. If I died here, injected by a doctor defending himself from a crazy patient, everything would be over. The syringe came closer. I could see the silver needle glinting under the lights. I shut my eyes, raising my hands to protect my face. Police, don't move! The voice thundered through the corridor. It wasn't Dr. Adrian Cole's voice. I opened my eyes. 2 uniformed police officers had rushed in from the elevator. Behind them stood Dr. Adrian Cole. His face was pale, but resolute. Dr. Brooks froze mid-motion. His arm was still outstretched, the syringe only inches from my arm. He looked like a statue caught in the act. Marcus spun around the moment he saw the police. He bolted toward the emergency stairwell. "Stop him!" Dr. Cole shouted. One officer chased Marcus down, tackling him before he could open the door. Marcus crashed to the floor, screaming and cursing. The other officer approached Dr. Brooks. "Put the syringe down, slowly. Place it on the floor." Dr. Brooks's hands shook violently. The syringe slipped from his grip, clattering against the linoleum. The cloudy liquid spilled out. "Hands on your head, now." Dr. Brooks raised his hands, his face blank, broken. He knew it was over. I slid down the wall, collapsing to the floor. My legs could no longer hold me. I was gasping for air. Dr. Cole ran to me and knelt beside me. "Clara, you're safe. Are you hurt?" I shook my head. I couldn't speak. I could only point toward Ethan's room. "Ethan," I whispered. Dr. Cole understood instantly. He stood and ran past the officers who were cuffing Dr. Brooks. He burst into room 507. I heard Marcus shouting as he was restrained. "Let me go! I don't know anything! That doctor's insane! He tried to kill the patient! I'm a witness!" "Shut up!" one officer barked. I didn't care about him. My eyes were locked on Ethan's door. What would Dr. Cole find? Was I too late? Had last night's dose already? The door opened. Dr. Cole stood there. He wasn't alone. He was supporting someone. Someone standing upright despite his weakness.
someone wearing a hospital gown, someone whose breathing tube had been removed. It was Ethan. He was alive. He was standing. His eyes were open, fixed straight down the corridor. He wasn't looking at me. He wasn't looking at Dr. Cole. He was staring directly at Marcus Hale, who was being hauled to his feet by the police. The entire corridor fell silent. The only sounds were our lagged breathing and the click of handcuffs. Ethan took one step forward, still supported by Dr. Cole. His voice was hoarse, dry from hours of disuse, but everyone heard him clearly. "You," he rasped. Marcus's eyes went wide in horror. He stared at Ethan like he was seeing a ghost. He thought Ethan was in a coma, on the edge of death. He never imagined Ethan would be standing there accusing him. That was the final blow. Marcus's face collapsed into pure fear, the fear of a coward caught red-handed. He didn't say another word as the police dragged him away. The corridor remained in frozen, tense silence. The officers moved with cold efficiency. Marcus no longer screamed. He lay gasping on the floor, his face pressed against the cold linoleum, disbelief and hatred swirling in his eyes. Dr. Brooks stood rigid, hands raised. Cold metal cuffs snapped around his wrists behind his back. His once pristine white coat now looked like a pathetic costume. The poison-filled syringe lay on the floor between us, physical proof of his intent to murder. I was still on the floor, leaning against the wall. My entire body was shaking violently. The fight was over. The adrenaline drained away, leaving behind crushing exhaustion. I had done it. We had done it. My eyes never left the figure in the doorway. Ethan, my husband. He stood there, supported by Dr. Cole, his legs trembling. He almost collapsed. Dr. Cole caught him instantly. "Nurse! Wheelchair! Now!" I stood. My legs wobbled, but I forced myself forward. I ran the last few steps and crashed into him. I wrapped my arms around my husband. I could feel his bones beneath the thin hospital gown. He felt fragile, but warm, alive. "Ethan, Ethan," I cried. Not tears of rage or fear anymore. These were tears of overwhelming relief, so deep they hurt. I buried my face against his chest, breathing in the scent of the hospital and the faint familiar scent of him. He was alive.
He lifted one trembling hand. It was weak, barely steady, but he managed to brush my shawl with his fingertips. "Clara," he whispered hoarsely. You saved me." "I heard you," he said again softly, as if speaking from the darkness. "I heard your voice." A nurse arrived with a wheelchair. With Dr. Adrian Cole's help, we eased Ethan into it. His body sagged immediately, his eyes closed. He was completely spent. "Is he okay?" I asked in panic. "He's exhausted," Dr. Cole said. "His breathing is still labored. The antidote worked, but his body has endured extreme trauma. He was poisoned for hours. We need to move him somewhere safe, away from here." Dr. Cole pushed the wheelchair. I walked beside them, never letting go of Ethan's hand. We passed the nurse's station, now crowded with additional police securing the scene. Dr. Cole led us to a private recovery room in a different wing of Central City Medical Center. The room was clean and quiet, with a large window overlooking a garden. We transferred Ethan onto the bed. Dr. Cole immediately checked his vital signs and set up a new IV. This time, I knew exactly what it contained: saline and vitamins only. "He's stable," Dr. Cole said. "His heart rate is strong, though slow. He just needs rest. He needs time to recover." I sat in the chair beside the bed, holding Ethan's hand. "Thank you," I said to Dr. Cole. "I don't even know what to say. You saved us." Dr. Cole sat down across from me, visibly exhausted. "We saved him together," he said, watching Ethan sleep. "When you told me he was crying, when I realized he was conscious,
everything changed. This was no longer malpractice. It was torture. How did you get here in time with the police? I thought we were finished when the recorder died. Dr. Cole exhaled deeply. Those were the longest hours of my life. After I got the lab results, I knew we had evidence of attempted murder. Succinylcholine, very specific. But when I realized the recorder was dead, I panicked. I knew they'd sensed something. I knew Marcus wouldn't hesitate. He would accelerate the plan. He continued, I couldn't trust hospital security. Dr. Raymond Brooks was untouchable here, a god in the ICU. So I ran. I didn't call the police. I drove straight to Central City Police Headquarters. They believed you right away? I asked. No, he said bitterly. At first, they thought I was a deranged doctor with a personal vendetta, but I refused to leave. I shouted in the lobby. I showed them the lab results. I told them a murder was actively taking place in the intensive care unit of Central City Medical Center by the head of the ICU himself. Eventually, a detective noticed me. He listened. He saw the madness in my eyes, but he also saw the truth in the lab results. He agreed to bring 2 officers. We didn't use sirens. We came in quietly through the back entrance. When we reached the 5th floor, we heard you screaming. He looked at me. You shouting Marcus's name, the audit, succinylcholine, you gave them the final piece they needed. When we turned the corner, we saw Dr. Brooks charging at you with a syringe. The rest, you already know. We sat in silence for a moment. What about Ethan? I asked softly. How was he able to stand? Last night he was fully poisoned. Last night, yes, but I managed to buy time during that fake code blue. After you took the samples, I went back. I couldn't replace the IV bag. It was too risky. But I clamped the line, slowing the flow to almost nothing. The poison was still entering his system, but extremely slowly. And when I arrived with the police, the first thing I did was run to his room. I cut off the toxic IV and injected neostigmine, the antidote to neuromuscular blockers. It took a few minutes, but it was enough to restore muscle control. He paused. I never expected him to stand. That was pure willpower. He heard Marcus. He heard you were in danger. Adrenaline and rage did the rest. Ethan's eyes opened. I heard everything, he whispered. Dr. Cole and I leaned in closer. Since the accident, it wasn't an accident. Marcus rammed my car. A black SUV pushed me off the road. My eyes widened in horror. I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in the ER. I was confused. I couldn't move well. Then they transferred me to the ICU. I heard Marcus's voice. He sounded relieved. Then I heard Dr. Brooks. He closed his eyes briefly, reliving the nightmare. They talked. Marcus said I knew too much, that I had to be silenced. Then I felt an injection, not through the IV, in my neck, cold, and suddenly I couldn't move at all. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move a finger, but I could hear. I heard them planning my heart failure. I heard them bargaining over money. I heard Marcus leave. I was alone, trapped. I thought I was going to die there. I screamed in my head, but nothing came out. His breathing grew shallow. Then you came, he said, looking at me, tears pooling in his eyes. You were my anchor, Clara. I focused everything I had on trying to give you a sign. I tried to scream. All that came were tears. I cried again, gripping his hands tightly. The door opened. The detective who had led the arrest stepped inside, his expression serious. Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Bennett, Dr. Cole, sorry to disturb your rest. He glanced at Ethan. Mr. Bennett, we'll need your formal statement, but that can wait until you're stronger. He turned to me. Mrs. Bennett, you said you had additional evidence regarding motive. I nodded. My hands were still shaking as I opened my bag. I pulled out the documents I'd taken from Ethan's office, the draft audit email, and the business life insurance policy. I handed them to the detective. He read them once, then again. He swore quietly under his breath. He looked at the three of us. Financial embezzlement audit, business life insurance policy, testimony from a conscious victim, poison samples, and a double attempted murder caught in the ICU corridor? He shook his head. This isn't just attempted murder. This is an exceptionally well-planned criminal conspiracy. You three didn't just survive it. You exposed everything. He sealed the documents into an evidence bag. The road ahead will be long. There will be trials, but I can promise you one thing. Marcus Hale and Dr. Raymond Brooks will never see the outside world again. 6 months later, the courtroom of the Central City District Court was packed. The air was tight with tension. Camera flashes greeted us as Ethan, Dr. Adrian Cole, and I walked in. Ethan no longer needed a wheelchair. He walked with a cane, his steps steady. Each one was a victory over the poison that nearly took his life. I walked beside him, my shawl neatly in place, my head held high. Dr. Cole followed just behind us, calm and professional. We were no longer victims hiding in fear. We were witnesses, and this trial had become national news.
The ICU scandal and the betrayal of a trusted friend. Marcus Hale and Dr. Raymond Brooks sat at the defendant's table. Marcus, flanked by his team of expensive attorneys, still tried to project arrogance, dressed in his finest tailored suit. But the dark circles beneath his eyes and the way he avoided Ethan Bennett's gaze betrayed the panic roiling inside him. Dr. Brooks, on the other hand, looked completely broken. He had aged 20 years in 6 months. He knew his career, his life, was over. One by one, we took the stand. Dr. Adrian Cole was called first. Calm, precise, methodical. He explained the scientific evidence to the jury. He presented the autopsy results of Colin. He explained how the poison worked, how it would slowly kill Ethan by mimicking heart failure. Then the prosecution escalated. They opened old cases, 5 other suspicious deaths connected to Dr. Raymond Brooks at the intensive care unit over the past 3 years. All wealthy patients, all died from sudden complications. A horrifying pattern emerged. Dr. Brooks was a hired serial killer. Marcus Hale's lawyer attacked viciously, accusing Dr. Cole of being an ambitious young doctor, framing his superior. Dr. Cole never wavered. I became a doctor to save lives, he said evenly, not to watch people be murdered. I saw a crime and I reported it. Then it was my turn. I told them everything. The phone call that night, Dr. Cole's warning, the voices behind the utility room door, the moment I saw Marcus hand a small briefcase to Dr. Brooks. I described how I snuck into the ICU, took samples, and saw the tears in my husband's eyes, how I found the audit emails and the insurance policies. When I looked at Marcus Hale, I felt no fear, only disgust. His attorney tried to paint me as a hysterical, emotionally unstable wife. So you want us to believe, he sneered, that you, without any medical training, conducted a spy mission inside Central City Medical Center? I want you to believe, I replied, my voice clear and echoing through the courtroom, that a wife will do anything to save her husband. I saw them trying to kill him, and I took the evidence. But the testimony that destroyed everything came from Ethan Bennett. He walked slowly to the stand, refusing assistance. He stood upright, gripping his cane.
the courtroom fell silent. He looked at the jury, he looked at the judge, then he looked at Marcus Hale. That man, Ethan said, pointing, was not just my business partner. He was my best friend. He was my brother. Ethan told them everything. The meeting that morning, the confrontation about the embezzlement, how Marcus looked panicked, then smiled and said, "Relax, Finn. Everything will be taken care of." By taken care of, Ethan continued, his voice trembling with restrained emotion, meant ramming my car and pushing me into a ravine. The courtroom gasped. Then Ethan described the horror inside the ICU. I couldn't move. I was completely paralyzed, but I could hear everything. I heard him bargaining for my life with Dr. Brooks. I heard them planning my funeral. I heard him ask when I would finally die. I lay there screaming inside my head, sinking into darkness. I felt the poison flowing cold through my veins. He stopped. He stared straight into Marcus Hale's eyes. "Your betrayal hurt more than the car crash ever did, Marcus. Your poison was nothing compared to the hatred you showed me." That was it. Marcus couldn't refute a single word. Seeing everything collapse, Dr. Raymond Brooks made one final move. He betrayed his partner in crime. To avoid the death penalty, he confessed. He fired his lawyer and told the court everything. He confirmed every word Ethan spoke. He detailed how Marcus approached him, offering several million US dollars to handle Ethan cleanly. He confessed to the 5 other murders. That was the final nail. Marcus exploded. He leapt from his seat, trying to attack Dr. Brooks. "Scoundrel! Liar!" he screamed. The mask of arrogance shattered, revealing the monster underneath. Court security slammed him to the floor. On sentencing day, the judge did not mince words. Dr. Raymond Brooks, due to his confession, was spared the death penalty, but sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. His medical license revoked, his name erased from all professional records. He would die behind bars. Marcus Hale, for attempted premeditated murder, large-scale embezzlement, insurance fraud, and orchestrating a vehicular assault, was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 40 years. All his assets were seized: his money, his company, his freedom. As he was dragged out of the courtroom, he was nothing more than a broken man screaming about injustice. Karma had been paid in full. Months later, the sun was setting on the terrace of our new home, a small house with a lush garden, far from the noise of the city. Our old apartment had been sold, along with every terrible memory inside it. I was watering the roses, feeling a peace I hadn't known in years. Ethan sat in a wicker chair, reading a book. His cane leaned against the chair beside him. He no longer needed it around the house, only for longer walks. Physical therapy was going well. His body had healed. His heart would take longer. A car pulled up. Dr. Adrian Cole stepped out, no longer wearing a residence coat, just a simple batik-style shirt. He smiled when he saw us. I brought out tea. The 3 of us sat together watching the sunset. "So," Ethan said, closing his book, "it's official." Dr. Cole nodded. "Official. I've completed my residency. Starting next month, I'm the head of the Ethics and Quality Oversight Committee at Central City Medical Center. The new board is serious about restoring the hospital's reputation," I said warmly. "They chose the right person." "And you?" Ethan asked. Ethan smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen in months. "The company collapsed, but I salvaged the assets Marcus couldn't touch. I'm starting again from zero." "Chipda Gimalang?" Dr. Cole asked. "No," Ethan replied, reaching for my hand. "It's called Sunset Light Corporation." I smiled. My heart warmed. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky shift from orange to purple. Our journey had been brutal. We had seen the darkest sides of humanity. betrayal, greed, cruelty, but we had also seen the best: courage, loyalty, justice. We survived. We both lived. And before us, under the peaceful glow of the sunset, stretched a new life, a second life we had fought for with everything we had.